Well, Shabbat shalom, everyone that's joining us here today. It's good to see everybody and to be part of your Shabbat. Thank you for being part of our Shabbat. So I am going to put this banner up there and just say, thank you very much for those that have donated online and have been part of this ministry financially and blessed us in this last week. And we have a huge way to go, but we do know that some people have gone online to help us out. And so I just want to put that up there. If you've not had an opportunity to give an offering or a donation or a tithe, even if you see this as your congregation, I would sure love for you. And I know we would sure love for you to come and be part of that financially. And so there's our website, lifeofworshipamarillo.org. And you can just click or tap the donate button and you can go that way, or you can use snail mail, and you can drop us a letter online and or not online, but you can go online, get our address, and mail a check, money order, or whatever is going to work best for you. Cash, however, is good for you. We certainly appreciate every donation that's coming in to help us take care of the ministry needs and the financial deficit that we're having at this point in time. That's all I'm going to say about that, but we're just going to leave it there. Thank you so much. And also your prayers and prayers that y'all would also bring other partners with us in this endeavor that will continue this ministry. And you are certainly a part of that. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm taking that off the screen if I can find it. And I'm going to just leave a scroll here at the bottom of the screen. So anybody that's joining with us, they can still know, well, what was that website? I didn't see it. Well, here it is. So that's going to be scrolling across the bottom of the screen for you to check out later on or during the time that we're talking. So, all right. So this week's Torah portion, as we get started with it, and it's Vayetze, and it's found in Genesis chapter 28, verses 10 through 32:2. And of course, we want to dig into it. We want to find these revelations, these things that the Father implants in these Torah portions. And every year something new comes out, and because it encourages our faith and it gives us something to chew on and something that nourishes us. So I pray that that's going to be the same for everyone here with us today. As we get started, let's go ahead and open in prayer, and I'll do that. So, Father, we just come before you right now in the name of Yeshua. Father, we want to have eyes to see and ears to hear what your Spirit, your Ruach HaKodesh, is speaking to the congregation today. That, Father, that we would be able to pull back the veil and the layers and to see the things that you want us to see, that we might have your understanding and that we would have your knowledge and that we would have be able to embrace your ways as we see it, and also so that we are nourished and prepared for the days to come. So, Father, we just bless you and we thank you for this week's Torah portion and that which you have spoken to us for so many years. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. All righty then. So, okay, Vayetze is... Anybody?
He went.
And he went. And he went. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that on the board. And he went. And who's that referring to? Yaakov. Yes. Jacob. Let me put it. Yes. Yeah. Or yes, if you're going to say it in English, I got to spell it. I have a problem with spelling. I'm still having problems spelling. Jacob in the... All right. Okay. Yaakov. Jacob. Isn't it very interesting? So in this Torah portion, we've got a lot of things going on. We see him leaving his father's house. We see him going to the place, and it's called the place, the Hamakom, and a certain place where he sleeps, spends the night. He has this vision of the ladder. So that's where we get the story, Jacob's ladder. We have a staircase to heaven. And this is a place where he's giving a promise by Yah. And he makes a promise that if Yah would bring him back to this place, that he would even bring his tithe. And okay, so think about this. Isn't it interesting? Don't you think his grandfather, Abraham, maybe told him a little bit about his story where Shem came out, or they say Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, came out and met him where? At this place. And it was there that he gave a tithe to Melchizedek. So Jacob recognizes that this is a set apart and holy place. And so he says, I'm going to do the same thing that my grandfather Abraham did. And it really speaks about another thing that would come in the first and the second temple periods, where people would come to Jerusalem and bring their tithes. But what do you do today? If there's a place in Jerusalem that there's an abomination set up on Temple Mount, do you want to bring your tithe there? No. I think there'll be a future place. So where do you bring your tithe? You bring it to the place where you meet with Yah, and you gather together with the people.
Bring it to the place where you are learning and growing.
You're learning and growing,
and your congregational home, because they are the Torah teachers of the day.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are
exactly what I was saying. So thank you, Pastor Sandy. So anyway, well, and then the rest of this Torah portion goes on where he meets Rachel. We see how he's swindled. Shall we say he's swindled? Jacob is swindled by having to marry Leah first and then Rachel. He works for him for a total of 20 years and then takes off. And then Laban says, "Oh, you deceived me. You took off without telling me." Well, turn around is fair play, Laban. So anyway, there we go. That's just kind of that sums it up. It's then Leah and the servants start having lots of babies. That's kind of where we're at. Oh yeah, and then they leave. They depart, and they take their father's gods, and yes, we talked about that at Sukkot, and then how's it end? Oh yeah, they make Laban chases them down. They make a covenant between them, and that's the end of this Torah portion. So there we go. We're done. We're done for the week, and we're get ready for the encounter service. That was longer than 60 seconds. No, Tammy's got that one down. Tammy Johnson there on Monday's edition of Let Us Reason Together. Just a little shameless plug. So y'all want to always watch Monday edition of Let Us Reason Together, and Walking in Spirit and Truth, and Planet Chapter, and our Shabbat services. And did I miss one, Sandy? Okay. All right. Yes, Bob, that was Mount Moriah. So, okay. Let's start out, then let's go back to the beginning of this Torah portion. And if I could get someone to open up the reading for us.
We've already done this. You said you're third.
Well, yeah, it's a record skip. We're going back. The song's going to play again. So if I could get somebody to read. So I'll read it. All right.
Sure?
Yeah, you can pick up with the reading afterwards at the next part of it. So Jacob's dream is Genesis 28, beginning with verse 10. And it reads, I'm going to sit down to read it. Isn't that kind of opposite? You stand to read? Then Yaakov, Jacob, departed from Beersheba and went towards Haran, and he came to a certain place, Hamakom, a certain place, and spent the night there, because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he had a dream, and behold, a ladder was set on the earth with the top reaching to heaven, and behold, the angels of Yah were ascending and descending on it. And behalf Yahweh stood above it and said, I am Yahweh, the Elohim of your father Abraham, and the Yah of Yitzhak. The land on which you lie, I will give it to you and to your descendants. Your descendants shall also be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and in your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Yaakov, Jacob, awoke from his sleep and said, surely Yahweh is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of El. And this is the gate of heaven. So Yaakov, Jacob, rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on its top. And he said, and he called the name of the place Bethel. However, previously the name of the city had been Luz. Then Jacob, Yaakov, made a vow, saying, if Yah will be with me and keep me on this journey that I take, and will give me food to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my father's house in safety, then Yahweh will be my El. Isn't that interesting? He would say that. And this stone, which I have set up as a pillar, will be Yah's house, and of all that thou dost give me, I will surely give a tenth to thee. So I think this is extremely, extremely interesting to me, because I'm kind of looking at it through different eyes, and this time around, and maybe we can bring some of those things out in this year.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I just realized too is that, he told him, whatever you give me, I will give a tenth. But here's the thing is, Jacob worked really hard. He worked hard for his bride twice. Worked hard for all those animals. He picked out all the spotted ones, and he did things for it. So it's not that God just gave him things. He actually worked for what Yah gave him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that is a lesson for us. We just need to be working for Yah and for what. Anyway. So that we can give him the 10% back, I guess.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because it goes right along with some of the things I've been bringing out of for Ezra, and where Ezra was complaining about the struggles of life, and that's in. Yeah, so I'm going to read that because that really goes along with it. I'm glad you brought it up. And it's for Ezra chapter 7. It says, verse 10, and I said, it is so, Adonai. Then said he unto me, even so also is Israel's portion, because for their sakes I made the world. And when Adam transgressed my statutes, then was decreed that now is done. Then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. For the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure. So talking about, this is the world that we live in now, and the world to come, that entrance is made narrow, full of sorrow and travail, and brought immortal. And for the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought immortal fruit. If then that they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. Now, therefore, why disquiet yourself, being you are but a corruptible man? And why are you moved, whereas you are but mortal? Why have you not considered in your mind this thing that is to come, rather than that which is present? That's that whole thing, because of what it said. And when we've studied this out before, Jacob was pursued by one of the sons of Esau all the way up to this point, and Jacob had to negotiate with him and ended up giving him, he didn't leave empty-handed when he left that Isaac's house. He left with flocks and goods and inheritance. Yeah. According to Jasher. Yeah. So, and then this son of Esau chases him down and takes it all, saying, you're taking my father's inheritance. So now everything's been stripped of Jacob, which also gives you the point of like, well, here he is. He's worn out. He's basically been running. And so now, so that he's empty-handed. This is what makes it so difficult for him when he goes to show up in Laban's house, in Laban's house, is that, here I am. Laban's like, I remember what happened when your father, when Abraham's servant showed up and who took my sister Rivka, and he had all sorts of wealth. What's up with you? And that's why he's like, well, you've been here a month. I think we need to talk about some wages. You can't just live here and not do anything. And so I think we see a certain point of tension where he knows this is the grandson of Abraham. This is the son of Isaac. This is one who is going to have great wealth, and he comes empty-handed, and he wants my daughters. He's going to have to work a long time to build up this exchange. And so we see here in Ezra, he points it out, and he says this, regarding, where did I just read? I just read it. Yeah, even so, and I said unto Adonai, then said he unto me, even so also it is Israel's portion. Well, what is this portion? If in the prior verse, in this city, now we're given unto a man for an inheritance. If he never shall pass the danger set before him, how shall he receive this inheritance? So he's talking about a city that's in a distant place. He's using under parable language. And he's saying, look, in this walk that we have, there is a reward set before you. And it is a city that's in a broad place, that it's bountiful in all that it has. This is your reward. And this is the reward of Israel. Well, what's it? Jacob's new name? It's Israel. But how is he going to receive that inheritance? Other than he's going to have to walk this narrow path full of sorrow and travail, where there are full of sorrow and travail, but they are but few and evil, full of perils and very painful. There we go. Read the right line at the same time. What did Laban do? Laban just wanted to piggyback off of Jacob. He knows Jacob. He knows this inheritance that he has. He knows the blessing. Is like, you know what? I'm going to dip into this thing while he's here. I'm going to get the most of it.
Well, I think that it said that before Jacob came, he had scrawny little herds. He wasn't very successful.
Yeah.
I think that's what it said, right?
I don't recall reading that, but I do. We get a picture. He certainly wasn't that wealthy. He has his daughters, out there shepherding, just like Rivka. Rivka was out there, shepherding the family's flock. So here's Rachel out there shepherding the family's flocks. But, I don't know what happened to the dowry and all the riches that the servant of Abraham brought, but obviously something happened. It whittled down. But Laban, I mean, he's kind of a scoundrel. Well, I won't say it. Yeah, he is a scoundrel.
No, he is.
But he's also this worshiper of another god, of these other gods. And I mentioned this. I taught on this at Sukkot. I've mentioned it a while back as well here at Life of Worship after Sukkot. And so let's talk about those idols that he had. A lot of times those idols were, in case anybody hadn't heard it, were shrunken heads. And these would be the, oftentimes the heads of your enemies. But they would be taken and they would be placed in a shrine or an altar in the house or the living area of one's home, and they would be placed in a prominent place where they would come in and worship and consult.
Why would you worship or consult the enemy's heads?
Yeah, well, it means that they've been.
It was costly.
Well, it could be a number of different things. You know, sometimes these were carved idols out of wood or stone, and then they would be, the wealthier homes would have them covered in gold or silver. And so there would be representations there as well.
Maybe you just reminded them that they were conquerors. It was a reminder of them anyway.
Yeah, but it also, I would seem to, I don't know this for sure, but I'd also say, well, this is the conquered enemy. Now you have to serve me. And now you need to tell me what's going on because you are of another world. And then what they would do with these idols is they would have this ceremony called the mouth opening ceremony. It was an occultic ritual by which they would invoke demons or gods, little g gods, to come and inhabit these idols. And then these idols, they would come in, would be subject to them, and they when they would be consulted with, then they were to speak to them about their whatever they were inquiring about. And this is really big. So here's Lavan, of course, he's pagan, he's following with these heathenistic ways, and of all things, when Rachel takes him and steals him from the house, she's like, I don't want him to know about us. You know, a lot of times they go, is he going to be is she going to try to consult these demons and these gods to try to get information? Or is she just trying to have advantage over her father, knowing that her father has, even the very fact that her father would, in this Torah portion, would say, you stole my daughters and my livestock and my grandchildren. Where did he even think that he would have ownership?
Yeah.
Or he would be responsible for these. Belong to Leah. To Jacob. He gave Leah and Rachel to Jacob. Jacob's family is his family. And so Bob says the funny mustache guy from Deutschland did the same thing. They received fallen angel technology from doing this. Bob. Okay. So anyway, I just think it's very interesting when we're talking about this route, you know, Jacob having this difficult, it's just like his life is full of difficulties. But when Ezra, and who is Ezra? He's a priest in the line of Zadok. He is the one who oversaw the building of the second temple. And he was considered a scribe as well, And we have, and he's distraught. It's during the second temple period. There's still people living in Babylon that's in captivity. There's people, they're not prospering in the land. I mean, all of the wealth of the land had been removed. And so the people are just living in poverty. And he's like, yeah, these are your people and they're having a difficult time. And so, you know, of all different things, what makes life have meaning to us above anything else? What just amplifies meaning to us in life?
It should be Yeshua, the word. It should be.
Yeah. When that word speaks to us, when we hear the voice of the living God, where it rattles us, it shakes us. It may not always be what we want to hear, but it makes sense of everything in life that's going on. And this is that communication. I mean, Ezra has gone through 2 weeks of fasting. And it's like, well, haven't we studied this before? Isn't this something we all know, that life is tough and this is kind of just the hard thing of life? And then we look at people that are prospering and that they have ease in life, and we think, that just doesn't seem fair. And yet here Yah comes and speaks. Yahweh's speaking to him and says, no, I'm going to reset your attitude. They've got everything they want in this life. You're going to take this road and its obstacles and its narrowness, where one side is fire and the other side is deep water, because at the end of this road is a great reward. It's a broad field and a city that's bountiful. So it was a good point that you brought that up. And I think a lot of times we have to really remember Zakar. It's what makes us human. Zakar, that word means to remember. It's also the word for man. And so we get our humanity as we walk these things out. We see Jacob wasn't a God. He was a man, just like every one of us, that walks through all sorts of different issues. We have a messianic element, several messianic elements in this Torah portion that are all kind of tied in, that speaks about not only Messiah, but also the return, the second coming of Messiah. And it partly starts out in this word up here, Vayetze. So as we put on the board, it means to what? What's it mean? And went? Okay. So if we consider that, and then we consider even a little bit more meaning to it of the root of the word, Yetzi is where we get the root of the word is yatsah. And that word means to go or to come out. It means to be brought. Came, go forth, depart, go forward, and proceed. So we see in this, he is proceeding forth, or he's being brought out. But where did he come from? Where did he start in this journey?
Jacob?
Yeah, Jacob. Beersheba. And going back in our studies of Beersheba, what does it mean? Beersheba, about 7 wells, or 7 oaths. So where there's 7 oaths or 7 wells, the word be'er means well or pit. And the primitive root of that word, so be'er, the primitive root is ba'ar, and it has a meaning or a definition of to make distinction or to make plain, expound on, or inscribe. And that's where we get this picture of where we get the picture of the oaths, because an oath is a swearing to, and in something it's inscribed. And of all different things, where is Beersheba near? So it's near the cave, Machpelah. So it's near that area, right? Is that right? Haran? No. Yeah. Okay. So Ba'ar. Anyway, that's where Abraham was there. He would take his flocks to these wells. Isaac as well. He's tied to this area. This is where Jacob is leaving or departing from or fleeing from. He's going forth. But what is his purpose as he's leaving? Of course, he's he's blessed. He's sent out. He's sent out by Isaac. Rachel is, Rebecca, Rivka is like, hey, there's this plot against him. He needs to leave, and he needs to leave right now. So, and by the way, let's maybe get the priority straight. He needs a wife, and he's not going to end up like Esau. And we need to send him back to my father's house, to my brother's house. Go get himself a wife. So get a wife, and he better go do it right now because we've heard this plot against him, right? So he's sent out, and so his mission is to do what?
Stay alive.
What was that?
Stay alive.
Stay alive.
Yeah.
Stay alive and get a wife. Stay alive and get a wife. It's very important. Both of those are very important. I mean, everything, hinges on his success in this journey. It's also very interesting because when I was going through this Torah portion, I was thinking about Jacob, and Esau was considered, how do we know Esau? Esau was a man of the field, right? He was a hunter. He didn't want to slow down. He didn't want to study. He didn't want to, hang out with Abraham and Isaac. He didn't want to learn the word or anything like that. Jacob was known as a man of the tents. He was one, which is, metaphorically speaking, one who studied Torah. He studied under the feet of Abraham and Isaac. That was very important to him. This is his family lineage. He's also understanding and Shem and Noah. Yeah, because we're still alive, amazingly. And he also understood that was the responsibility of the firstborn. As Esau was abdicating that role, he's like, somebody's going to have to learn. This is our family. Everything about our family. He wasn't doing that. This is how you take care of the household. Esau was out in the field, hunting, doing stuff. Found himself a couple Canaanite women. Esau is just not doing well. So he's got that understanding, and so we see this picture of one who is born in the land and has to leave to get his bride. Now, what type of picture does that give us? And then we have another picture of a certain Yeshua, born in the land, but understands that his bride is scattered everywhere. And so his desire and his words to us is that he is his mission was for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And so, but here's Isaac, who is going to fetch his bride from a distant land and come back with all of those that would come from them, would be the descendants of Israel. And you see that parallel. I just think it's very interesting. But of course, it doesn't. But not only does he leave this place of these wells, and you think about the wells, and you think, first thing I think about the wells, and I think about the living water, right? And they're gathering places. Wells are gathering places. Life proceeds from the well. Oh, I just looked at something else to go a little bit further on that word. Sheva, which we know is where we get the word seven, but it is also Shabbat, which is the word for to swear, exchange oaths, to take an oath or vow. So that's how we kind of connect all of these all together. But you can say in an inscribed vow. So it's written down. What happened with Abraham right there was very, very significant. And he recognizes it, and he's carrying that lineage with him as he goes. But this place that he stops, it doesn't talk about any other place. And it doesn't really say if he started out as as Jasher says, if he started out with herds, he couldn't be traveling very quickly because.
Did he have guys with him, or was he alone? So I guess when Esau took his guys, I mean, did he shepherd all those by himself?
That's a really good question, and that part in Jasher, I would have to go back and look at that. If he had servants with him, I don't know. I couldn't tell you that. But I also think that, but him leaving with what would be considered a dowry and taking this dowry would have been following in the same pattern that Abraham sent his servant, who I believe was Eleazar, in the same manner to his kinsman, for which he could get a bride. That certainly Jacob would be doing the exact same thing. But he shows up empty-handed. And so it's just rough. I just think, man, that he had a hard time. And I think the Jasher narrative actually really shows us something there. But it also shows us something about his character. Yeah.
All of that, everything that's happened to him is test. It's showing that God is going to put a nation on top of him, and he has to prove himself. And not look right or left, up or down, but keep going and keep following what he's got him to.
Yeah.
And be humble along the way.
Yeah, right. And it goes right. That's really good. And think about this. He's doing this narrow path alone. And that's what Ezra talks about, this path to that broad place where the big city is, our reward in the world to come, so to speak. You can only go, you can't do it on somebody else's back or side by side with somebody. You have to walk it alone. Yeah.
Something I thought of too is you think about wilderness. We've talked about wilderness and how it sounds really bad, but a lot of times the Father puts us in the wilderness to draw us closer. So is that what Jacob is going through? He is going through that, and then he actually, meets Father face to face, in that place, or saw angels or the ladder or whatever. So he was in that wilderness, and that's when the Father came to him.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
that's a lesson for us.
I think that's a really good point, because this is the place, the Hamakom.
I mean, it may not be a wilderness, but you know what I'm saying, a wilderness without anybody to help him.
Yeah.
By himself. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that had that what came to him didn't come by his own hand.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. It had to be. Honestly, he saw the hand of God and the blessing because he was obedient in walking that way. That's a really good point. So my question is this: why did he go to this place? And we see this stop where he has this encounter with God. Why did he stop there? Why did he take that route through Moriah, the mountains of Moriah? Actually, it's a mountain area, 3 mountains together. So why would he go there?
Go to Moriah, the mountains of Moriah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's because, now I could be wrong about this, just forgive me, but I wonder if he was like, was Isaac almost sacrificed at some of these places? What if he went by there? Because you know how you go to something happened and you want to take your kids to see, look, this is where he has to be a married or, just different things you want to go, and maybe he went that way to get to that place because he wanted to be there.
It is said that the place where he slept, or the tradition says that is the exact place, and the stones that were piled for the altar.
No, that's afterwards. That's what
The stones that was around his head were from the altar that Isaac was laid upon.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what'd you say, Daryl?
Might have been one of the things he learned when he was in the town.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And he wanted to see it.
yeah. So
I don't know.
I'm going to say yes. And And the reason, and that's because that's exactly right. Because I'm thinking maybe he wants to see this place, but he knows that's where Yah provided the ram. He provided the lamb.
He showed himself as
He revealed himself to Abraham and Isaac at this place. So if God and the angel stopped Abraham from killing Isaac.
Yes.
And so this is a place that he recognizes that there have been divine encounters. So now he's showing up there. So in this location, we see there's a ram that showed up. There's been an angel that showed up there. We've seen this prophetic message that we see in this place. We see, what else do we see? We have the altar that was built there. This was a place where we see substitution that took place for the substitution or for the sacrifice. What are some other things that we see in this location? We see the stones of the altar.
surrender.
And this, I guess we could say the stones here. You said surrender?
Well, in reality, it's a place of intimacy. It's a place of surrender, because you have to, I mean, what did Isaac do? He laid himself down low. It's also could be considered a place of betrothal.
Okay. I put encounter on here because there's encounter. I mean, look at all these things that took place. So another reason why, well, this thing's like a good place to camp out for the night. And
Does it make you want to go?
yeah, it
I
does.
want to go.
It does. But I also think, considering that Jacob is on a mission to get a bride, I think there's something supernaturally that just drew him to this place. There's something that was so strong that he said, I'm going to camp out here. I don't know at what point in time he lost everything. But of all different things, we see him, when he gets there, he's taking these stones. So we have the stones, and I believe they probably came from the altar that Abraham built. You said that? Yeah. Your voice is so quiet today. I didn't catch everything. So,
Poor thing.
and then it says that, yeah, speak up, Sandy. People online could probably hear you better. And it says, and he took one, and he came to us. This is verse 11 of chapter 28. And he came to a certain place, Hamakom, the place, and spent the night there because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and lay down in the place. And so it was said that he took those stones and built like a wall. Now, this is what I think is very interesting. Ron Wyatt. You know Ron Wyatt?
Yes.
Okay, so he discovered the place of the Ark of the Covenant. Well, they had more revelations on Michael Rood's show, Shabbat Night Live, and it was just yesterday evening. And so in Jerusalem, there's a place where the Garden Tomb is, and not far from the Garden Tomb is what's called Gordon's Golgotha. Gordon's Golgotha. So this is the place of the skull. Gordon, the name Gordon is the name of the general in the British Army that labeled it. This looks like Golgotha because it kind of looks like a skull. It has two cave openings that look like eye sockets and one lower cave opening that would be the mouth opening. And this, of all different places, there's a bus stop there, a bus station in Jerusalem, just at the foot of this thing. But I saw this, and it was very interesting. A gentleman took an instrument that is a detector, and you set it for the type of metal that you're looking for, and you can set it for gold. and at the base, at the foot of this Gordon's Golgotha, they're actually set up benches there so people can go and sit and maybe even meditate, or just to say, wow, this is a place. Because we always get a picture that Yeshua went to the top of Golgotha when he was crucified. But in the excavations of going after, looking for the place that Ron Wyatt thought the ark was, that it's actually at the base of this mountain face, because it's right by the road. So when the Romans passed by there, or when people are going in and out of Jerusalem, they would pass right by where people were being executed. And so what they found in the rocks, they found the post holes where they would put the cross. And it was anywhere from 18 to 24 inches deep. And so they found the exact place where the cross was that they put Yeshua, and the place where they would have mounted the sign above that post hole into the rocks. The sign, that says Yeshua, King of the Jews, right there. So they didn't find the sign, but they found the place where they would have mounted it. It's right there. And
there was post holes for the others.
And there are post holes for the others. And then in that one post hole, though, is a crack in the rock. It's it goes right through that post hole, and it's a crack in the rock. Yeah. So this guy comes up with this. So they wanted to test something, because Ron Wyatt was a long time ago, and they sealed everything back up after he did it, once they made the discovery. And of course, the state of Israel knows exactly where it is, because the archaeologists and stuff, they shared the information together when they found it. And so this guy takes this instrument and he sits down, and when it detects the gold, actually when you come up, it can detect the gold, and it's got like these two antennas. And when it detects it, it'll spin to the location and point to where the gold is. And as he goes over to this one spot, he's right on top of it. It begins to spin.
Wow.
And saying, because it's not away from him, it's underneath him, and he's right above. And of course, the ark being covered in gold, probably to the tune of about 800 pounds is how much that ark weighs. That's how much gold. There's so much gold that's on it. It is right there, where in the front of this place, of course, they never show it unless you go to Jerusalem and you've seen it. So, well, there's Gordon's Golgotha, and here's the bus station that's right there. And I mean, it's just a place where several buses come and they can stop, and you can offload and reload and stuff and move on. But it's right there, right behind it. I remember seeing it, and as a fifth grader, and I was like, well, that makes more sense to be in Golgotha than what the Catholic says Golgotha is somewhere inside the city walls. And yet here's modern city built all the way around it. But a very short distance away from there, because we went there, and we didn't get to go there on our tour. But if you're looking at it up there to the left, not far from there is the Garden Tomb. So, which it's a tomb for a rich man. It has a place where there's this little opening, and I think many people probably seen pictures of it before, and a little groove where a big stone could roll down in front of the door. And it's a little bit of a downhill slope to the door. So to move it away is to roll it back up, and it would take several men to roll this stone back out of the way. So it's very interesting how that works. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with tour, but the ice cream's out and the gun cake is out.
Okay. Now, with that said, what was very interesting, now let's take it back to Jacob. This place that Jacob would have been in my opinion, because if this is the place where the altar was that Abraham, Jacob would have been looking for a place of protection. So he wouldn't have been necessarily up on top. A lot of times high ground is best ground. But if there's no protection up on top, why not be down next to the wall and then take these stones and build a wall around you so you could nestle down and hide? And it's right outside the city of Luz, and Luz being the name that's later called Jerusalem. So he would have been opposite the city, and he would have been right there. Isn't that interesting? So now we have this prophetic picture of not only he's going to the place where the substitution of the ram and the angel and this prophetic outlook that we look and we see Yeshua coming, and he takes those very stones to build a wall and takes one of them that is his headstone and a place of surrender, intimacy, and encounter. He has this encounter with Yah, and of all different things, isn't it interesting that this is the place that he's given the promise? And what was that promise again? That the land on which you lie, I will give it to you and to your descendants. Now I want you to think about this. The land which you lie, I'm going to give to you and your descendants. Well, if where he's at, and I'm just conjecturing, I could be wrong, study it out for yourself, but it really makes sense to me this year more than any other year, especially after watching that piece with Ron Wyatt and with that gold detector, and I'm thinking, what is this thing? It is the land in which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. And what is that? The place where Yeshua died. And not too far from there where he was raised from the dead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to distract you, but I would, because it would be a detour for a few minutes.
No, go ahead.
All right. So let's go to this place. Let's, like he's talking about, and let's see. In reality, he is sort of doing what he's about to do 22 years later, and when he peels the rods and things, because he's doing something very meticulous as seed, as word. He's placing that word, the rock, the things around his head, the word of Yahweh around his head, and the 12 stones can even look. You could even look at the luminaries if you wanted to on that. We're not going there right now, but when you look at, he's taking the stone for his pillows. It's plural. It's merasha is the Hebrew word for his pillows, and the root is the same as bereshit, which we find in Genesis 28:11 in the beginning in our text here. And we have that mem with that merasha, and that mem indicates a source of origin, and that vav tav is a plural suffix, and then you have the resh, aleph, and shin, which means head, first, or beginning. Also, it means to shake, as in to shake your head. Yet, Yaakov, he doesn't have multiple heads, we know that. But the plural form of the word indicates, it hints at his actions concerning his head, what he's doing. So for clarity, we use that sum, which is, it looks like some in English, which you see there. Also, which means to appoint, to call, to change. So the stones, like other memorial stones, were established throughout the Torah as the covenant reminder of committing your ways, committing your cause, to Yah. I'm setting out on this journey, and here in this place of intimacy, here at this place where there's surrender and where you brought provision, I'm surrendering myself and saying, what, I don't want my own way, I want yours. So you continue with that, and he's placing those stones in a divine order. He's placing those in a certain way, reminding, saying, hey, Yah, remember your promise. Remember it to me. Remember it to my family. Remember. It is only after he puts his faith into motion. It's only after he does something, and he does it with confidence. I mean, we got to believe that God is going to do what he says, and he says what he means. And so it's only at that point when he puts his faith into action and he puts that seed, he stands, or not stands literally, but that's when he gets the dream. That's when he gets his answer. That is sort of like a pattern for us, because faith requires action, period. We want an answer, but where's the faith action that precedes the answer? And then the dream comes, and then things go further. But I mean, we can break it down further. I don't want to deter from what John's doing, but that place has so much. You can look at layer upon layer of significance of that place, because what's going to happen in the place is what we were just talking about. It's the answer. It is the promise. It's Yeshua, and it's very layered. So
Yes.
It is extremely. So this is where it's like this. It's another one of those gems that just got dug out, and even today, it's just the emphasis is right there. We see, because of the discovery of what's under there, and you think, well, what are they waiting for? And I think on Shabbat Night Live, what they said, the word that was given to Ron Wyatt. Oh, I don't want.
Israel really doesn't want that happening, because then they have to admit who he was.
The word for it, well, I can see that, and is that it won't come. It will not. The angel says it will not be allowed to be released until the law for the mark is in place.
I don't think the ark will come out in a false temple.
No, I don't think it's going to come out for a false temple either. Because the other thing is that what Ron Wyatt has said is that he was the only one that was allowed to go into that chamber where it was discovered that other people had tried to go down there, and they had to drag out their bodies.
Mm.
So
Could there be a false ark though, a fake one?
there could be a fake one.
There's everything else.
When you think about how counterfeits work, and that's how deception works.
But if you think about what Steve Butria brought out, was that, that thing has got power, and whenever, I don't listen to studies in a while, maybe they do put it there and set it up, but I don't think it's going to last, because I think it's going to start that fire coming down.
See, I still think there'll be a false. I think there's going to be a false fire that comes.
Yes.
And it won't be from the ark. It's
And
going to
that's
be.
when the elect will be deceived, because it's going to look.
Oh, look.
Yeah, look.
Mhm.
It's gonna
Well, and
look
then
like
they
that.
justified the second temple didn't have the ark, so.
Yeah,
But I do think
that's
it's
right.
going to come out in the end sometime. The ark is going to be brought out.
Yeah.
However.
Not for
probably,
Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, think about that. Yeah, the Ezekiel's temple could certainly have it, but think about this. I was thinking about this, and this is a little off track, but during the second temple period, they didn't have the ark, and so it didn't matter who went behind the curtain, because the ark wasn't there. I mean, think about that. So when you had the false priesthood or the wicked priesthood, and they would go behind the veil during,
They wouldn't have been allowed.
They-
in the ark.
they wouldn't have lived, because they were the wrong
Well,
priesthood
but you've got to
lineage.
think there is evidence. I mean, there's a lot if you look. Around 167, you see is when the split of the false priesthood, when Antiochus the fourth and the fifth came in, and they really established, put a different guy in there, and then they said you need to follow our ways, our days, our et cetera, and then officially they made a deal, like with Jonathan. They said, hey, if you do our, you can have your religious stuff if you do our days.
Yeah, and now that you brought that up, there was something that was brought up during Shabbat Night Live is that that it's the Vatican has it in their plans, and that will be adopted by the governments of the world to make Sunday the official day of worship, and make it a requirement that all people worship on a Sunday, and that will become law. So, and I think that's going to be associated with the mark. In my opinion, it's probably going to be associated with the mark. So I had actually said that because I'd come across that way back in 2013 or something like that. I think
We'll have to make it home
that
again.
yeah. So however it's going to be, we're not gonna compromise. Shabbat.
They would completely, totally have to ditch the Constitution. It already has pretty much been ditched. But they would have to completely, pretty much ditch the U.S. Constitution, and then you would have the liberal. It would ACLU come down for Wicca and all the other things because they're not going to want to have any worship.
Do you know, I was reading an
Or
article.
they'll worship their trees.
Well, it's the day of the sun. It's the worship of Mithra, the sun god, and all of that. And I don't think the Wiccans or occultists or Luciferians or whomever will have a problem with it.
Buddhas or Hindu.
Yeah, I don't think they'll have a
I'm
problem
with
with
you.
it.
I think that's probably exactly true.
Yeah,
So here's the thing is we need to be like Jacob and just be, you were saying that the Father was drawing him, but he was searching. I believe that God was searching for that place and searching for that intimacy and wanting to go to that place because he was searching for the face of God.
Uh-huh.
I believe that. And he's showing us how to live out your salvation in fear and trembling. And that's what we've got to do in these dark, dark days is just keep on doing Shabbat.
I like what you said because he was searching. Think about it. Whether it's just for a wife or whether he's just lost everything that he went for. Either way, he's
On
like,
his way.
I'm going to do this my way. I already saw how much trouble my brother's in for getting the wrong woman. How am I supposed to go get a woman, especially a good woman? I have no money or no things to get. If that had already occurred, I have to go back to Joshua and read it. Whichever way it is, I think it had. Actually, I think it has occurred. I'm pretty sure it did occur.
He would be alone. That's
Yeah, so like you said, he was almost, so I'm going to go to the place where I know y'all has moved, where he's talked to my family, where he has done things, because I need an answer. And I want to start right.
yeah. I think that's exactly right. I think because if you look at this point in time in Jacob's life, has he ever had a word from Yah directly?
Know what?
I mean,
It's not recorded, right? We see that Abraham has had it. We see that Isaac has had it, but up until this point, he has never had that word, that direct word that's been recorded that tells us that God speaks to him directly.
he studied, he had that word, and that was leading him, but I think
Right.
he was looking for something more spiritual.
Yes. Okay. I had to look up a word real quick. So as I'm trying to find the word that I was going to look, yeah, that one right there. Okay. It's Aleph, Resh, Sheen. Okay. I just wanted to say it right. Okay. Sandy was talking about that root word for betrothed. No, pillow that relates to betrothed. And so going to the very root of that's the word resh. And this is what the paleo definition of the pictograph is for the head. And the head of the tribe, chief or family or father, is passed from generation to generation The head grants permission for the betrothal of his daughters and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family, the head of a person, place, thing, or time. So I just thought, first off, so resh, and where it's the root of, what was that word? Marashah? Marasha? Okay.
The emphasis is on the last
The
syllable.
emphasis is on the correct syllable. Okay. But out of that, we have the word aras. Aras. So resh is the root. You add an aleph at the beginning of it. And what do you get? Aras. And that word aras means to engage for, or matrimony, to betroth, engage. So it just kind of gives emphasis. It's interesting how the Hebrew itself allows us to see his journey. It's for a betrothal. It's for an engagement. But how many wonder, think back, and you say, am I marrying the right woman? Am I marrying the right man? I need a word from the Lord. Or how many people say, no, I'm just going to missionary date and they'll just conform with my faith, right?
A lot of people do that.
A lot of people do that. Or as parents, oh, Father, bring the right man, bring the right woman for my son, for my daughter, for Amariah, for my grandchild. And, you know, what a better place when you consider this is, why not for Jacob, that he's like, I'm in search for a wife and I'm on this journey to go and get that word from Yah for that.
But really, I mean, everything we are studying of old is applied to our life today, to our circumstances today, to the times today, so that we can understand them. So the lesson here, that we go over it, it's not, oh, that's then, it's now. This is for now. This is for our lives at this moment. And a reminder of what we should be or should do, or hopefully have done, or do a course correction or something.
So we look at the rock where he placed his head. In one sense, we can kind of get to there in a bit. But the other thing, is that it says in my translation, it says in verse 13, and behold, Yahweh stood above it and said. So he stood above this ladder and said, but that word for above can also mean beside. So above gives you a picture of, why did in medieval cathedrals, why did they put the pulpit on an elevated ledge or in a position? A lot of times there's a stage and you would have a pulpit on an elevated stage. You say, well, practical purposes, it's so that the person on the stage can see everybody.
Or they can see them.
Or they can see them elevated above everything. And I can't draw, but at the front of these cathedrals, let's say that's the front of the cathedral. If all the pews are here, and then you have like the stage area here at the front, they would have this staircase and put a little platform here up above, not just on an elevated platform here, but go way up above, and they would put this pulpit. Yeah. So it's like, when you think of the picture that Yahweh's above, you get this picture of dominance, which is, Yahweh's God. So he is superior, and everything does come under him. But on the other side, if you look at that word, if it's translated and it said instead of above, but say beside, what's it tell us about the journey?
Well,
Right there.
It says that he's in the front and behind. It doesn't say he's above us. In the Psalms,
Mm-hmm.
he's in front and behind you.
Yeah. So think about this. So we want to know that Yah is with us and not against us, that he's not just so far above us that we can't reach out to him. But if he's beside us, we know literally when he pulls us out of the miry clay and sets us upon the rock so that we can walk in the way we should go, that he's walking with us. We want him on that path. It's a narrow path. And if anything, let's hang on to his seats, right?
There you go.
Because there's stability there.
You know, saying that, and this is just hearsay as something that somebody said. It might have been from the sages, but somebody was saying that they thought that that heaven really wasn't up into the solar. It's maybe about as tall as the trees.
Close.
It's so close because, you got those stairs. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I have no idea if that's true, but I was like, oh.
Melissa talks about that in that
Maybe that's
dimensionality.
where I got that from.
She says it's like here, it's this
Yeah.
high.
Yeah, so it's not as far away as we think, and I think that's kind of cool. I just kind of think like that thought. Put it on the shelf.
It just blows our minds because we
Yes.
don't understand. it.
Yeah.
Kind of like almost, okay.
Seems so far away that it's just really not. Maybe our sin drives it farther away.
Yeah, and the closer you get to him, the more you catch what he's doing and saying and everything else.
But then again, the earth is his footstool.
That's right.
Yes. Do you like? Yes. Both.
Okay. So, all right. So let's go back a little bit further down, and so we see stones appearing several different times, and let me see where I have a little bit more. My notes. We see that he sets the stones up. He puts his head. He sleeps on one of the stones. Now, take it for what it's worth. The sages say that these 12 stones that he set up all merged and became one stone, which became the very cornerstone of the temple. And so, but understand that a lot of times when in the oral traditions, they use those things to help explain a story, not as if they're fact, but a lot of times we're so literal as people.
Maybe it's more like
It's a concept, yeah. And so a lot of times, but we in the West, a lot of times like to think literally, what? How do 12 stones become one stone? But we do have a concept here is that it is the concept of the stone. Now, one of the things that the sages also say is that it was from this place where Jacob slept happened to be the same place, not only where Abraham and Isaac were, but it was also the same place where Yah took the dust of the earth and formed Adam. So, and then you can also think about.
But he was placed in the garden. That means he was outside the garden when he was born.
So if this place,
I think that's right.
if you think about this, kind of some interesting concepts, because where is Jerusalem? Where was the temple? It was over there. If we're thinking about where the place of the skull is, where this place that we've been talking about, what if it's there? And Jerusalem is right across this road. It's like a 4-lane, 5-6-lane road, and you cross over, and there's the old city of Jerusalem, and up on the old city of Jerusalem is Temple Mount, and so they say that they took that stone and it became the cornerstone of the temple. They also say the temple in temple language, the garden is the first temple. And if Adam was taken and placed in the garden, well, maybe he was made from the dust outside of the garden area, which would have been the temple area, and placed inside. These are just thoughts, and it gives you something, conundrums to think about. Is it true? Nobody was there. So, but we talk about these things to help give us maybe an explanation of these things, and of all different things. If it was Adam whose dust was right there, here's the thought that I have, is because it's in a couple different places in Scripture that there was a first Adam and there was a second Adam, and that second Adam is Yeshua. Well, where is the point of emphasis for Yeshua's life is what happened at the cross or the tree or the stake or whatever you want to call it. And where did all of that take place? Maybe right there in that same location. So would one point to the other? Would the first Adam point to the second Adam? Would all these join together in this one spot? And here's Jacob, who gets the promise that he's going to have descendants that were promised to Abraham and Isaac. And so he's going to have these descendants that out of him would come Levi, that would be the priesthood, Judah, that would be the kingship. We would have Joseph, who would have this double portion inheritance. Not to say that any of the other tribes are less, but we have all of these in Jacob's loins right there in this one spot. So I think it's just also another very interesting connection between all of that and how the layers, they keep going. All of these connections going back to this, and it's connected to this vision of where heaven is connected to earth and angels ascending and descending. And he gets up the next, and he gets up.
Portals are kind of a negative connotation, but maybe it's a portal. I don't know.
Could be.
Not there, but towards the
And one of the testimonies of one they were talking on Shabbat Night Live was that when you sit there, there's just a very strong presence of Yah in that place. And I'm thinking, I would think so. And I was like, I want to go there. I want to sit in that spot.
Sorry, but maybe there is a strong presence, but there is such evil perverted around it. When you enter a place with evil, you feel that evil.
Well,
Think about that foundation stone. It's right there. Where is it? It's in the center of the.
No, I'm talking about there at the where Yeshua was crucified, where they found.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. If the ark is 15 feet below,
There's got to be just angels surrounding that.
it's just got to be.
Sorry, and that's why that presence is maybe protected, because those angels are.
Well, there
just
has to
around
be a supernatural protection.
there, keeping.
And by the way, since we're there again, Eddie and Tammy said it is supposed to come out. Ron White said it is supposed to come out at the mark. So
Yeah.
So when we see the ark.
the thought of that being anywhere near.
I know. I don't think the Father will put up with it long if he doesn't.
Well, remember that the people that weren't Yah's people of the past did not want that in their presence. Every time they captured it, they get rid of it.
Right, that's right.
You know-
That's
They
exactly.
said that, well, it's gonna be 3.5 years, or a lot of them say 7 years. But I'm telling you, Yeshua's ministry was not that long, and God's not going to occupy longer than Yeshua had.
Well, one of the things too is the fact that
Figure out when it starts, though.
I would see one of the perfect platforms for the two witnesses to preach from would be where those benches are set up right there at that same spot.
Because people are still
And
going.
people are right there getting on and off buses.
That's good. Well, exciting times we live in.
I don't know where the witnesses are going to be, but I was like, I could see them right there saying, this is the place. Can't you see the skull? Here's the hole. The ark was right here. This is the place. It tells the whole
I
story.
think it'd create more havoc if they did it on Temple Mount.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Temple Mount, I don't think they're going to be restricted in their
I
travel.
believe it'll be.
That's what I'm
That's what I was
saying.
gonna
They
say.
could
They're
do
gonna be
whatever.
More than
They're not
one
gonna.
place.
They're not going to get killed.
So
until
are they
it's supposed to be.
are they going to be proclaiming that about Yeshua? Yes, but about the word, the Torah. I mean, what is there going to be their platform such that it is? Does that make sense?
What will they be saying?
Are they going to be proclaiming Yeshua or Torah?
Maybe
Yes.
Maybe they'll be teaching Torah
Yes.
for that.
I think
Come back
it's
to Torah, come back to the word. Yeshua is the word.
Or they may be saying, "You brood of vipers."
I
Get a
know,
clue.
right?
Yeah, really,
Well,
that's more like
And
it.
that's more like
if it's centered right there in Jerusalem. I mean, think about that, where the Orthodox are in control, but the Catholics, it is.
We've got a big
And the Muslims are there. I mean,
Yes.
you've got all three that are right there, and they all have a form of Yeshua. That one's looking for the Messiah. One has a
Very skewed.
skewed look of who Jesus is, and then you have Muslims who have him as a prophet,
And they're looking for their Messiah.
and they're looking for their yeah. So
Don't you think it'll be televised to the world? I do.
I
Some way it's
I
gonna
think
be.
so. So I do think now I'm just, if you want to pull this into current events, everything keeps, it's not looking good in the Middle East, but a lot of people think, okay, is Israel just going to come out and be completely victorious over this whole thing, or what's going to happen? Honestly, I really think when we see that Jerusalem's going to be trampled for 42 months by the Gentiles, that everything that we see is not a big miraculous victory for Israel during this, is that it's going to come under UN control. It doesn't mean that the state of Israel is going to be destroyed. I think they're going to have it. I think there's going to be something that the UN is going to come under control, take control over it. But I also see that it's going to bring about a worldwide crises. And I think it could be multiple dimensions. It could have disease with it. It can have economic collapse with it. It can have war with it. It can have multiple dimensions that the world is going to say, we need something to bring us relief. And that's when the mark comes out. That's when the one world currency comes out. The CBDCs are already there. I mean, it's already set up. Everything is set in place. So, yeah, Jared.
My guess is I believe AI will win it.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
They're already saying that artificial intelligence can do grade school math. So if you think of grade school math all the way up through the senior year of high school, which you're getting into calculus and calculus 2. This is what AI can do now. It's making solving problems. It won't be long before it's doing advanced mathematics. Like
Kids graduating from high school did grade school math.
select few do. So think about that. In other words, and then there was something else that I came across in regards to artificial intelligence since you brought it up, is that, this goes back and what they found all the way back into the 70s, where they took cells from a rat's brain and connected it into computing. And they, because the cells of the brain fire off of electronics, electromagnetic waves, that it became programmable. And they've known this technology all the way back to the 70s. So when you think about this now, when you think about a brain that's connected to personalities and attitude, they have found in the advanced computing that oftentimes advanced computers can have an attitude. And that they have also connected the very fact that when someone is having a bad day, that bad attitude in the bad day they're having can connect them and end up having malfunctions in their computer, in their electronics.
So the AI has feelings.
Terminator could have been prophecy. There's a connection because of the electromagnetic connection with it all. Go ahead.
Even then, like, they talk about computer systems and aircraft and stuff like that. And how they had found that some of those systems had learned to influence the other computer system that way.
Wow.
Or sonic, like this speaker or microphone systems, they would communicate, like, they do it through a modem.
Yeah.
Through the telephone lines, but through air. And
Wow.
also with the brain cell thing, they were they figured out how to put human brain cells in those mice and rats. So that kind of
Yeah.
it's a conduit. So
Yeah.
who knows what people interface with it.
Right. So when you think
Could be the beast.
AI could be the beast, certainly part of the beast
Or
system.
at least how it manifests in this realm.
Yeah. So when you think about then, if you take human brain cells, that's part of these computing systems, because now they're coming up with the technology where it's not all solid state, that it is fluid.
Well, but they've also got the quantum realm, which is
That was what my
Yeah, that's another
based upon
story,
probabilities and things like that, which is probably how our organic system works.
Yeah.
Whereas how we're able to have our consciousness and stuff, so there's no telling what might be able to plug into that.
Which takes us to that next step, is that if there's consciousness in it and human matter connected with it, then that gives the idea, when you understand how the demonic attaches themselves or whatever to humans, they can attach to the demon in the computer. The spirit can attach itself to the system.
But going back to those old Bibles and stuff like that, those people had back in those days, and how those entities were able to attach themselves to that. And manifest.
It manifests.
Therefore,
Right.
what they're able to do if they're augmented with.
Well, it's no different too than
Yeah.
places you go where there's a demonic attachment. So absolutely AI. It's good.
Yeah.
Because that's a more believable, more harmless disguise than if you had a golden calf come to life and start jumping around and stuff.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Because
Yeah.
everybody wants the latest and greatest.
Yes, yes.
But
Yeah.
also, people interact and the emotional attachment they'll have to their, from
Device.
and all that, all the technology. Who knows what you're talking to they're into that.
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop Satan from going into AI. There's no emotion, no God.
Mhm.
Yeah, nothing, it's there for the taking.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that he hates us, so probably doesn't want to show up as a person. They want to show up as something better.
Right? Yeah.
There's no telling who will be born in another 40 years.
So, yeah. So you think about this now.
Oh, that I know, let us proceed.
Yeah. So when we're talking about this rock, there's something about this rock that I think would also resonate, that Jacob had at his head, would resonate. If the presence of God was in that place, the presence of God was in that place with Abraham and Isaac, the presence of God was in that place. If it matches and goes all the way back to Adam, if the presence of God was in that place with Jacob, if the presence of God, which it was at the time of Yeshua, where his own blood spilt on that place is resonating.
Yeah, it's vibrating now.
And
Yeah.
even the rocks would cry out.
Yes.
Yeah. So which goes on and tells us how matter is, whether it's granite, gold, or flesh, has the ability to communicate.
Yes.
And because there's that dimension connection that all of them all share together. But how much more us, because we were designed to communicate with the Father.
Yeah, and making his image.
Yeah.
But going back to the dimensionality of things, and how you're talking about how, the three-dimensional space, what we observe as reality, that may be intersected with another plane, another dimensionality. So all those things could be, those layers of the garden and all that could be, intersecting that point.
Yeah. What is that? That's a
That's good.
intersectionality. Well, no matter when you look at it, no wonder there's a battle in over the land, over the Temple Mount, over this whole issue. It's no wonder to me that the Catholic Church would take and put a place inside the city walls, which they said, well, if you look at the history and the different directions that the wall went, that this was technically outside of the wall at the pertinent time. So this is why we think this is the place where Jesus was crucified, and et cetera, et cetera. It takes more mind-bending exercises to believe that than to say Yeshua was marched out this gate right up to here. So, so this rock, the Hebrew word for rock, does anybody know what that is? Or stone?
Eben, or it depends on if it's a stone too. It could be zer or eben.
Okay, so
Or zer. It depends on the size of it.
I'm looking at the word eben. And eben is spelt with, what'd you say?
I didn't give your.
Okay, so it's the aleph, the beit, and the noon. And aleph, Allah. The beit and the noon. And here we have kind of an interesting thing. If you separate if you spell it out in English, it would be written out like that, if you're taking notes. And if you separate this part out by itself, and this is an aleph and this is a beit, what word do you get? Ab? What's ab? Father. Okay? If you separate, let's do it in a different color. If you separate this part out,
Son.
what do you get? You get son. Isn't it interesting? By the word rock, that you have both the Father and the Son, it's one rock. It's one rock. It's not two rocks. It's one rock.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of an interesting little wordplay, but it's in that Hebrew language where it gives us that picture. So the aleph representing the head of an ox, representing strength and power, the beit, which is talking to us about the house or the tent, and the noon, speaking about the sprouting seed or the offspring, the continuation of offspring or an heir, or that which sprouts forth, promises continuation. So when you get this and you want to put this together, you have a picture that tells us about the rock, the stone, which is the head and strength of the dwelling place has been brought forth. The head and strength of the dwelling place has been brought forth. And I'm thinking about right there where the place of the cross is. And is the chief cornerstone upon which we are built and have the sure promise of inheritance.
We are the living stones. You get the corner.
So what is this promise that's been given to Jacob? He's told that he's going to have your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth. There's that dust factor. Adam, if this was the place that Adam's dust was gathered according to the sages of the earth, and it shall spread to the west and to the east and to the north and the south, and in you and your descendants shall be all the families of the earth, and be blessed. And behold, I am with you. So here's that picture of Yah, not above him, but beside him. I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. I think, to me, that has to be something very, very powerful to hear and to get those words. Now, let's look at somewhere else. Now, I brought up that city was known as Luz at the time. Luz. And the word Luz means almond tree. Again, what does an almond tree remind you of?
Yeah, the staff.
The staff of Aaron?
Yes.
The staff of Aaron. So later, that name, so what does Jacob call it? He calls it Beit El. Beit El. Or, which is, in English, we'd say Bethel. Bethel. So that connection, when I saw this Torah portion around, seeing the almond tree, and it connects us to Aaron's rod
Yes.
that budded. Oh, dyslexic here.
Well, to me right now, because if I hear about Aaron's rod, this goes back to what Eddie was teaching us and what I'm teaching now, is that this is the day and the hour to, just as we've gone back to his word and the spirit and all that, now it's time to get the correct priesthood in line. And so now anytime I think of Aaron's rod, I'm thinking about the corrupt, wicked sons of darkness, which are those priests that have been in the sons of light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I think of as
And
well.
I want to preach it today, but you guys know, I guess you just, I can't do that today, right?
No, really.
So Aaron's
It's very
rod
political.
that budded is talking about the rod of prophecy, that prophetic, the content within the Ark of the Covenant, which is now below this spot. If this is all kind of putting the pieces together, and in that Ark is Aaron's rod that budded, and in that revelation of that rod is not only that it's his rod, but it's the authority of the priesthood line and lineage that comes down through his son Eleazar and Pinchas down to the high priest that was at the time of David, which is Zadok. And we see the Zadokite priesthood in Ezekiel's temple in Ezekiel chapter 44. We see that Ezra, that I was reading from earlier, is a priest in the lineage of Zadok. And as Pastor Sandy was teaching in the last couple weeks, that Mary and is connected to the priesthood through the lineage of Zadok, which means Yeshua is of the lineage of Zadok, and Yeshua's brother, we say it in English as James, his name was Yaakov. James, his brother, and Simeon. So after James was martyred, Simeon moved into that position. Why? Because he's in the royal lineage of the Zadok priesthood. So in that early first century assembly, we have Yeshua, who of course represents that Melchizedek priesthood. And we can see why he's part of the royal priesthood. And then his brother, we see, of course, Yeshua is crucified and he rises from the dead and he ascends. His brother James is the president of the council at Jerusalem, and he is martyred. And the next brother in line takes over and is leading the congregation in Jerusalem. Isn't this interesting how that history brings us together?
We've got to remember that, it's always been pushed aside. But
Oh.
Yeshua was after John Yochanan the Immerser, Yeshua was the correct high priest in line because he had no children, just like I taught. And then Yaakov or James the Just. So that is the correct lineage of the high priest.
Yeah, because when the priest dies, his brother continues.
Or the son initially, the
James
son.
was the one that-
Yeah, or the son. And so
Yochanan
Yeshua
had
doesn't
no
have
children.
Yeshua doesn't have a son. James doesn't have a son and goes to Simon. Now here's the other thing. And remember, Mary, we said Mary is of this. Well, who's her brother? Joseph of Arimathea.
I'm the one that taught you that.
Yeah. And so this is Yeshua's uncle, but it's the brother of Mary. So Joseph of Arimathea would then also be of the lineage of Zadok,
Remind me whose son Simeon is or Simon?
brother of James and Yeshua.
Okay.
Yes.
I forgot that.
Yeah. So all of these royal priesthood connections is very important. And then when you go back and you think, wow, this stone, this chief cornerstone upon which we are built and have the sure promise of inheritance. You think, wow, this whole messianic picture that unfolds to us. Now, this should ground us.
Mm-hmm.
It should ground us in our faith that what we believe is really true. I mean, it's just, there's so much here.
It's intricate.
It's very intricate.
So much more deeper than what you ever learned as a kid, right?
Or what we learned in the church.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So Matthew 21:42 says, Yeshua said to them, did you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone? This was from Yahweh, and it is marvelous in our eyes. And then in Mark 12, it's repeated in Mark 12:10 and 11. Have you not read this scripture? The stone which the builders rejected became the chief cornerstone. This is from Yahweh, and it's marvelous in our eyes. That's for emphasis. And also, Luke adds to this. Now, Luke, when you look at Luke or Lucius, Luke wrote, I just learned this. I think it's very interesting. Luke wrote his gospel and Acts because he was the one who traveled with Paul, and he wrote this as part of Paul's defense when he was up in the Roman courts. So he says, but he looked at them and said, what then is this that has been written? The stone which the builder rejected has become the chief cornerstone. And then verse 18, this is Luke 20:17-18. Everyone who falls on that stone shall be broken, but whomever it falls, he shall be pulverized. Everyone who falls on this stone shall be broken, but on whomever it falls, he shall be pulverized. Now look what happened to Jacob. The rock didn't fall on him, but his life, at this point in his life, it's broken.
He was wrung out many times.
And considering he's going empty-handed to get a bride, what's he going to do? So, but isn't that what Yeshua did? So we can look at it this way too. Understand, Yeshua, because of his lineage and his connections, was a very wealthy man, very wealthy family.
And we still teach that he was poverty.
But his poverty was that he died on the cross stripped of everything.
But you've got to go back to all of the wealth of Daniel was given
And I
to
agree with
Yeshua.
that, but not everybody knows that. Or
Mhm.
they
And then
just-
you look at father-in-law
No,
his uncle
Uncle.
who made his wealth in Britain and amassed that stuff. And I remember last week I told you that family wasn't as powerful as the Pharisaical family that was in power, Ananias, but he was very powerful family.
So this family was
Why
without
they wanted
corruption,
to.
though.
Right.
This family was without corruption.
That's why
The ruling authority, Ananias, was very corrupt, and as Sandy pointed out last week, it was like a mafia. They enforced their rule not only because they had money to bribe, but they if you look at what they did, they hired assassins to take out political
today.
political opposition.
If somebody's against you, you don't live.
Yeah. You think about, like all these, coincidental deaths that happened in Arkansas. I mean, go figure. I mean, it's the same principle.
Started with Cain.
Yeah, started with Cain. It did. It goes all the way back then. All right. And let's see if I had any last words, because we're pretty much, before we jumped into a whole nother subject, probably a good place to cut it off here. Oh, there is one other thing. Okay, so we started off at the wells, the 7 wells, and we get to the mountain here in Moriah, and he does one other thing. So we have the stone. We've been talking about that. We have this place that the ram was offered, the lamb from where that was caught in the thickets. But he does one other thing. He props this stone up and takes oil and pours it on the stone.
Yep.
And
That should tell you what the energy was of that stone. I mean, come on.
what is it when you anoint something with oil? What is that a representation of?
Kingship.
Kingship, a place, a royalty. Okay. What else does it show? The priesthood, right? You anoint the priest with oil, and what do you do with them? You set it apart. When you go through your house and you're praying over your house, and either whether it's when you first move in or you do it occasionally, and what do? You put oil on it, all the windows and the doors and stuff. Just you anoint your house with oil. What are you doing when you say that? You're setting this place apart. It's holy. Now, when something is holy, can it ever? Okay, let's look at this. When on Temple Mount, when
Setting up
and-
God's kingdom for one thing.
what was his name? The Greek guy,
No.
yeah, okay. Brain, come on. Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay. And what did he serve up on the altar? Can that altar ever be used again? It's defiled. But the stones were holy. What happened to the stones? If they're holy, can you just take those stones? Can you use them anymore for something that's holy since it's been defiled? But can you take that which was once holy and just throw it in the garbage pit? No. So they take those stones and they move it off to the side and get it out there, and they bring in new stones that are dedicated. They pour oil over it. They dedicate it. They set it aside. So this place that Jacob anoints with oil is set aside for a holy purpose. So for that one future sacrifice when Yeshua would hang on the cross. The place was already pre-anointed. And I think that is so. And as he's doing that, he can look across at the city of Luz, the city of the almond rod, the almond tree, and we see this whole picture of the rock, the rod, the oil. He came from the place of the well, and we see the inheritance and the blessings all generate at a time hundreds of years later where Yeshua would hang and open up heaven and bring heaven to earth as that intermediary interceding with his blood on our behalf. Isn't that something? Right here at the what we call today Gordon's Golgotha of all things. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say. Anybody else have any other comments before we close in prayer? And the counterfeit system, AI technology, is trying to break it up and try to destroy us and deceive us. And as Elon Musk wants to do, and has been given authorization through the FDA, is to start doing brain implants.
Wow.
To connect people's brains to the World Wide Web.
Wow.
Interesting.
Technology is increasing quickly.
Sure is. All right. That's all I have to say. Thank you all for being part. Let's pray and we'll be dismissed. Father, we just thank you for this time together. And
Yes.
that, Father, we just thank you for these insights that you give us. And just more than anything, cause us to wonder, cause us to think of your awesome power and greatness and forethought and how all these things were laid out, and you put them into the scripture so that we could see and we could look and Yeshua would be revealed to us. But Father, even as we look back to those things and we look at our present time, it gives us those things to chew upon and to be nurtured by and to be encouraged by and to be strengthened. And that, Father, that we have the ability of foresight to see that which is ahead of us.
Yes.
And so we treasure these moments and we treasure these nuggets that you've given us that will carry us forward. And we honor you in the mighty name of Yeshua. Amen.